Hello and welcome to the Ward 8 Democrats annual Kwanzaa celebration for 2021. I'm Troy Dante Presswood. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special Kwanzaa tribute to the life and legacy of Baba Melvin Deal. Joining me for this special tribute is Ward 8 activist Philip Pinnell and arts educator and founder of the DC Youth Ensemble, Carol Foster. Both of them knew Baba Melvin Deal very well. You don't want to miss this program, so click like, click share, so others can view this program as well. A native of the district, Baba Deal was an integral part of the city's African dance and cultural community for more than 5 decades. He was the founder and executive director of African Heritage Dancers and Drummers, where he taught many area youth and introduced them to the beat and rhythm of the drum. And in the process, he helped to build their self-esteem, cultural awareness, and kept them safe from community violence. Many of his former students were at-risk youth from the community, and they credit Baba Deal with having changed the direction of their lives. Baba Deal was an accomplished dancer, musician, choreographer, researcher, and director. He graduated from Howard University with a bachelor's degree in fine arts and education. He also studied extensively at Ghana University, University of Nigeria at Ibadan, and at numerous cultural institutions nationally and abroad in the African diaspora. The recipient of many prestigious awards, among them include the Washington Living Legends Award, Washingtonian of the Year, Mayor's Arts Award, Baltimore's Great Blacks in Wax Award, Philadelphia's Coden Award, and many others. For more than 30 years, Baba Deal was our featured orator and performer at our annual Kwanzaa celebrations. In fact, he was just with us at our last in-person Kwanzaa celebration back in 2019 at Union Temple Baptist Church, where he led an incredible ceremony, and we're going to watch a little bit of that today. But what he left us with was to always remember our heritage, our ancestors, and the beloved community. Ward 8 Democrats founder Philip Pinnell introduced Baba Deal to our organization some 30 years ago, and in that time, he has always been a part of our organization's annual Kwanzaa celebration. Here are some of Philip Pinnell's reflections on his friend, Baba Deal.
Yeah, I met Melvin Deal in 1976. We both worked for United Black Fund Agencies. Um, Melvin was the founder and the director of the African Heritage Dancers and Drummers, and I was working as the program developer for the community outreach program uh, for the Howard University Center for Sickle Cell Disease, and we just became immediate friends and over the years, we were constantly um, doing projects together. I was able to involve Melvin in the Ward 8 Democrats Kwanzaa programs where he would come and do libation and bring dancers and drummers, and actually involve some of the Ward 8 Dems in the dancing. 2002. That was a celebration when the December Kwanzaa celebration when the Ward 8 Democrats, that's when we were meeting at the Washington Highlands Library. And Melvin brought his dancers and drummers. Melvin actually got people in the audience to come up and to dance, and the spirit was so great. And we must have had over 200 people there, and it was potluck, and there was plenty of food, the great spirit, and Melvin Melvin was there. The African Heritage Dancers and Drummers, when the studio was located there on Minnesota Avenue, right off Benning Road. Then it moved to Good Hope Road. He was very much an East of the River institution. The number of dancers and drummers that were trained and that performed with him, they are still doing that to this day. You actually will see um, grandparents who will show up at an Afrocentric event and talk about how they, as children, were trained by Melvin. And there were so many times when I would be organizing events, and if you wanted to bring some type of, say, Afrocentric or Afrocentric authenticity to the event, well, getting Melvin was a deal to be there. Automatically gave the event cachet. I think that one of the reasons that so many people would come to the Ward 8 Democrats annual Kwanzaa was because of Melvin, and they knew that he would be bringing his dancers and drummers. But Melvin and we always worked together, and we never had a crossword. Melvin had that type of personality that was really not confrontational. There was something very peaceful about him. And I remember one time being a bit um, irritated with him when he was late arriving at one of my events. And, and then, and I made the statement, well, I can see why it took so long for black folks to have finally seen a TV news anchorman, because the 6 o'clock news would probably come on at 7:15. And Melvin just pretty much dismissed what I said by he saying, well, like in African cosmology, the event really happens once that person gets there. And he says also, sometimes being late is not a bad thing because it happens to throw the devil off. Because sometimes, like you don't want the devil to know what your schedule is. He was just an amazing brother, and I really miss him. Melvin actually knew Ron Karenga, the founder of Kwanzaa, and several times when Karenga was in D.C., Melvin hosted him at events. So Melvin was an authority. Where he actually knew how a Kwanzaa event is supposed to be done, and he also was able to tell us about the history and what it meant. Many times people are confused when they mistakenly think that Kwanzaa is an African a celebration, but it was something that originated here in the United States, but it has the African connections. And Melvin, because of his having studied in Africa and traveled extensively in Africa, was able to make those connections. He was a proud Black man, and with him, our cultural roots were realized and were made real. And most of us will not ever see Africa. But with Melvin, he made that connection for us. And anytime Melvin talked or taught, or performed, he was making it very clear that he was making that connection, particularly for, for and with the Africans in the diaspora.
Umoja, which is the first day of Kwanzaa, unity, Umoja. The second day would be Habari, Gani, Kujichagulia, which is self-determination. Then we would say Habari, Gani. We have Ujamaa, collective work and responsibility. Ujamaa, cooperative economics. Then we have Nia, which is purpose. And we have Kuumba, creativity. And finally, Imani. And we must remember always to walk in Imani all the time, because we must have faith to do what we have been sent to do by God and ancestors. If we use more faith and less doubt, we would be more successful in what we do, because it is the intention of why we do things that cause it to be either successful or failure. So if you know you means people good, then you know what you're doing is going to be good. But if you got some devious means, whatever, you know how folk do, they grow horns and tails, and try to get it that way. So if you get it that way, you're not going to keep it. But if you get it the other way, by way of good intentions and by way of Imani faith, you're going to keep it. Now, it's important to realize that there are still many people who know nothing about Kwanzaa, and they don't want to know, because it bespeaks of responsibility, which means that we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we did in the past year that was good for yourself, for God, and for your fellow human beings? And whatever that is, you have to recommit yourself to doing that good thing again in the coming year and do it even better. If you were a good cook in 2017, then you would want to say, I was a good cook in 2017, and I'm going to be an even better cook in 2018, which means that you're going to eat even better in 2018 than you did in what? In 2017. Now, it's important that we remind ourselves of who we are. Maya Angelou said, never forget who you are. Never. I don't care what goes on, Tom, Dick, Harry, Jane, Sue, and Keisha. Whatever they say, you say, no, look, you don't know me. You have to know yourself. And never forget who you are. You are noble, you are beautiful, you are loving and kind. These are all things, if you're not it, you want to be it. IT. And that goes into, the IT goes into a lot of discussion about Hanukkah, because I have people come to me and say, Kwanzaa is just like Hanukkah. I said, yes, yes. And some people don't want to affiliate with perspectives of what they consider to be other people's religion, but it's not religion, it's values. We try to instill values in these young people so that they will grow up and do the what? The right thing by their community and by their families. Young men won't father children and then run. Young ladies won't birth children and then run. People who are in charge of responsible things will not take it for granted and misuse it and run, but to stay course in the community, saying Habari Gani each day. What is the news? The news should be good. It should be about what you are trying to do to make the community better. So we are here in 2017 with Kwanzaa, and you see the Kinara here, and in the center is a black candle. The first day of Kwanzaa we'll light the black candle. Second day we'll light the far right red one here on the left, then the middle, then the next one, then we'll go to the green one at the end, the middle, and the next one, and of course we'll finish with Imani, which is the, excuse me, the last day of Kwanzaa. We see the corn for the children here. We see books and other things for the gift. We also have the Makika, the libation cup, and I might add that libation and prayer is very, very paramount in the Kwanzaa ceremony because it shows reverence for God and for our ancestors. And I'm here to let you know, those of you who think that ancestor appreciation is voodoo, it's not. If the Catholics can revere saints and so forth, we can revere our ancestors. Yes. Because your grandmother and my grandmother and grandfather did not live and die to be forgotten. Right. They did what they did because they what? Loved us. They wanted us to have only what? The best. So we have to remind ourselves to remember them by calling their names when we pour the libation. So, Angela, would you like for me to pour a libation and then?
Please, sir.
All right, do we have some, let's see, some water? Yeah, we need some water. And we need a bowl to pour the water in. Oh. In the Twi language, I will say I go, which means are you listening or may I continue? You will say I may. Does everyone say I may?
I may.
And I say I go, you say I may. I go.
I may.
I go.
I may.
I go.
I may.
I go.
I may.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in the name of all our ancestors of the Middle Passage, in the name of all that is good in the universe, we come and pour this libation this afternoon to give you honor and praise. We thank you, God and ancestors, for all of your many wonderful blessings. We thank you for health and strength to be here today. We ask that each and every person who is present be blessed mightily, and that they be given an understanding of the richness of their culture and who they are. Never let us forget who we are. We are children of God, children of our ancestors and of Mother Africa. And we come to make sure that you know that we know who you are. We thank you for all that you have given us. We ask that you come and give each of us a warm feeling of love and acceptance this day. These and all good things we ask in the name of all that is good in the universe, that all say amen.
Amen.
If we could stand and do the 7 Harambes. Harambe means pull together. We have come to pull together today, Ward 8 Democrats and community members. We've all come to pull together as one. And we will say Harambe together. Ready? And Harambe! 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 Everybody applaud now. Big noise, big noise. All right.
Foster is the legendary arts educator, icon, and founder of the DC Youth Ensemble. She and Baba Deal were very close, and we sat down recently to talk a bit about what his legacy is and how she thinks he would like to be remembered.
Well, thank you for having me. I always love being able to share all the great things that Baba Melvin Deal did. He was just bigger than life, and he was such a force and such an impact on African culture, African dance and drumming, African everything for the DMV and beyond. And so the loss is just immeasurable in terms of who can step in and even begin to fill those shoes. And it's really hard to say if we'll have anyone able to do that. He left a indelible mark on the whole city because he was the first to really bring to light African culture. And he was unabashedly, into the African culture. But that was Melvin. He was the first for a lot of things. And he really wanted people to understand that he had discovered his African heritage. And he was really, what can I say, illustrating it in his life at all times. And so he, would often talk about how people would, in the early days, talk about how he dressed, how he wore his hair, how he did all these things. But that was just him being able to exhibit his pride in who he was.
Baba Deal really wanted people to know that he was connected, he was in tune with his African heritage. How important was that to him and to help people connect with it?
Yeah, extremely important. And I feel like he was the one that put me in touch with my African heritage and taught me. And he did that for everybody. And all of us felt like we were his special children because of it. And he lived for that. He lived for that. And he was such a philosopher and such a historian and such an observer of what was going on around him, that he was always able to put things in perspective. And in that perspective, it was always from an African view. So he was very instrumental in enlightening so many people and so many young people.
One of the things that I think I will always remember, Mrs. Foster, is toward Baba Deal's end of life, you helped to organize, I guess, what do you call that? Is it like a Sela?
It was a Zoom gathering.
Wow, but it was an opportunity for us to give him his flowers while he was still here and with us. And I will always remember, and I think most of us who participated on that call will always remember that we had a chance to do that with someone who we really loved and adored. Tell me why that was important for you to do and to plan.
Well, I thought, there was such an issue around people being able to see him because they weren't vaccinated. So that was one of the motivational tools for it, because of the fact that I wanted people to see him and I wanted him to hear from them, because he would tend to, before he got, I guess, as critical as he did near the end, he would say, well, people forgotten about me, they're not thinking about me. And I just wanted him to know that people were really thinking about him. They were concerned and they appreciated him and loved him. And so we said, well, we'll try to do this Zoom, and then maybe in a month or so, we'll do another one. But it turned out that was the only one that we were able to do. But he loved it. He appreciated it so much. And when people would come on, he would just light up, and, it meant everything to him. So I was glad that it happened. It was just great having all people who spoke so highly of him and his contribution to their lives. It was just fantastic.
So one of the things that Baba Dill did was for us here at the Ward 8 Democrats was he was our Kwanzaa leader and speaker and teacher, for almost 20 years.
Mhm.
And so, uh, and one of the things that I think most of the Ward 8 community remember, one of the things that we remember most about Melvin Deal is that he would always bring young people with him
Mhm.
at all of these celebrations, young ladies, young men from the community in
Mhm.
positive atmosphere. And so you mentioned earlier about the young people. Can you just talk a little bit more about just the impact that he's had on young people right here in Ward
Oh,
8, Ward 7, and now city overall? I know you said impact on me growing up. And so I think you have a much bigger view in terms of the impact that he's really had.
oh gosh, yes. Over my 50 years and his 60 plus years, thousands of young people. And Melvin, he stayed true to that calling. And he made a point of making a home for those young people that did not have one, being a father, a brother, an uncle to all of the folks that, did not have those people in their lives. And, we were talking before we started about the fact that those young people they can do anything if they have that one person who really, my grandfather used to say, just fans their spark of divinity. And that was what Melvin could do. He could fan that spark of divinity in young people and make them do things they didn't think they could do, and bring out their talent and their creativity and their energy into so many positive ways. I think the city has really lost sight of how important the arts are for our young people and how we can make a difference in lives because we give them their humanity. And if they don't have that, then we do implode upon ourselves.
Mm.
So if there is anything that will always be his legacy, it will be the thousands of young people that he's touched and, taking them out of the country, taking them to perform different places in the country, around the city. And because a lot of people don't know the history of African heritage dancers and drummers and how much they did in the time that they were around and how many other African companies were an offshoot of African heritage. He did a super interesting project one year when street cheers were big. I don't know if you remember, if you go back this far, but honey, there was a big thing in DC about street cheer. And the kids were out in the summer. The girls were just hitting it and they were just doing these street cheers. He took some of those little girls and brought them in and put their street cheers to African drums.
Mm.
And taught them how and showed them how what they were doing was an exact replica almost of what the dancing girls of Dahomey did.
Mm.
And he was so good at making those connections. And, talking about when we were talking about, in the videos and they pour a 40 for the homie. And, we were telling the kids, that's libation. That's what we were doing. So he was always good at making the point that we might be 7 or 8 generations removed, but the blood memory is still there. And it's a genetic memory that we do not walk away from. It stays with us. And if you really know your history, then you can see it in what people do.
That's incredible. Um, and again, the impact on young people, even, someone like myself, up until the younger people who are with us today, you're right. His legacy will live on in many of them, but we got to make sure they are connected to that power that's already in us, that blood memory, right?
Mhm.
But many of them they've been severed from it, they have it in them, they just don't know it. So we gotta, and folks like Melvin and others like yourself, you all have worked very hard to help us connect or reconnect to that source. And I think that's one of the things that I think I'll miss most about Melvin is that he worked very hard to help us reconnect to
Yes,
that
yes.
royal bloodline that is in all of us.
And talking, and I think what I'll miss most is, talking about it, all of these things with him, and how his perspective, because he was so philosophical about the perspective, and he'd always sort of, well, you know, it starts here, or he would bring it on home in terms of why something is happening, why people are doing what they're doing, what they have lost, what they have forgotten, what they never learned. And he could always make it, I don't know if it's what the right word is for it, but he could always make it clear as to why the continuum was what it was. And, the things that he really wanted. And the reason he was able to make connections so well was that it was really all about love.
Mm.
And, we had to learn to love ourselves, love each other, and respect and love our community.
You also helped to organize his memorial service last month in November, and then you are leading again the efforts to organize a second memorial service later this month in December, on December 30th, I believe. Can you talk a little bit about the organizing, why that was important, the people who came together to make this such an important and memorable event really for the city and for those who loved Baba Deal?
And really, I can attribute it to all of the people that he touched. And so reaching out and finding people he touched is not hard, because he touched so many and just about everybody. So it wasn't hard to find people who had an interest and wanted to be a part. And so we were able to put together a planning committee, but it was initially 3 events. One was the family service, which was closed and, to his close family. And then was the November 13th, the spiritual life service, life celebration service. And then December 30th is really dedicated to the community that he served. And it's in celebration of his love of Kwanzaa, and always being there for the Kwanzaa events that went on. He was synonymous with that. And so we are in the midst of, again, planning something, and we have to squeeze this one out because we're still recovering from the last one. But I was just committed to having these 3 pieces, because that was Melvin. It was family, spirit, and community. And so December 30th will be at the Ark at 6 p.m. And we are already building our lineup of performers. We have Kankaran, Farafina Khan, Taratibu Youth Association, Dance Dimensions, Sound Express from Amanda Standard, a new company that's coming to DC. We have belly dancers of color. We have, we are anticipating some more folks to come on board, but I think it's going to be a really beautiful presentation and truly exemplary of our beloved Baba Deal.
Well, in our final moments, what is it that you want us to know about Baba Melvin Deal?
Oh, that he cared so much. He cared so much for everybody. He really did. And he wanted so much for everybody. I think he also wanted a respect that he may have felt he didn't have from the city, and a support that he thought maybe didn't exist from the city. But the city changed, and I think he would have wanted more acknowledgement and support. But I hope that, with young people like yourself and more people getting involved in the political landscape, that the arts will continue to have more support, especially in the Black community and in the communities of color. And I think he would really appreciate that. He would appreciate that we can bring our communities together. He was a person that, even though he's respected and loved and embraced African culture, he embraced all cultures. And he could bring all cultures together. He could bring all people together. I think if anything, we want to be able to be his legacy. And we want to be able to be about love and respect and caring for everyone, love and respect for everybody.
Well, we are indeed honored to have you be part of this reflection on Baba Melvin Deal. Mrs. Foster, please, 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 you got to come back again and be part of something that we're doing here in Ward 8. People here love you. They appreciate your legacy to the district and to our district's young people. And just like Baba Melvin Deal, we have the same love and respect and admiration for you as well. And thank you so much for being part of this event.
Thank you so much. Ward 8 is, almost lived in Ward 8. I was in Ward 8 more than I was home. Any given time.
Your kids are still, reminiscing about that.
And people have asked me over the years about the whole concept of Kwanzaa and why I do it anyway. I said, because Ron Karinga was given license. They said, where did he get the license? I said, from God.
That's right.
He was given a license from God to bring an enlightenment to our people that hopefully would help them survive and metamorphosize themselves into a more productive race. People can celebrate Hanukkah and it's fine. Oh my, Hanukkah and the candles and you mentioned Kwanzaa, voodoo. I can't do that. But let me tell you where the voodoo really is. The voodoo is when you look at yourself and don't like what you see. When you don't love your children to the point of deliriousness, and you tell them to get on the corner and sit down and look at TV, well, you go and do something dumb like your nails or your hair. Hello. It's a circumstance of understanding value and worth of self, umoja, unity, kujishakalea, self-determination, Ujamaa, collective work and responsibility, Ujamaa, cooperative economics, Nia, purpose, Kuumba, creativity and imani. And as I mentioned, each of the values of Kwanzaa, each one of them rings true to money on the street and money in your pocket, because if you are self-determined, you will not be afraid to start a business. Because you know that you are going to succeed in what you do. How come you know that? Because if you do it and you put God first, He will make sure that you succeed. And that's something that a lot of people have to deal with, is trusting what? God, trusting the Lord, trusting in Imani.
That's right, faith.
That God will bring you through. But the definition in this nation and in the world says if you're black, your hair's kinky, you got a strange accent, oh yes, it's a lot of that. You are not worthy. One of the first things I tell children when I work with them in the community is that you are worthy. They said, what does that mean? I said, it means that you're just as good as anybody else, and you deserve what everybody else has and more, because your ancestors built this country.
That's right.
The people who come here, and I'm not going to call any names, so I'm trying to be nice, but they're flipping their hair and flicking their nails and whatever, and looking at us like, where did you guys come from? He said, let me tell you something. If you knew what my people have paid for this freedom, you would kiss my feet.
Yes.
When you talk to the elders about all the atrocities that they had to bear in order to come to this land and to develop it so that you can come over the border and find refuge in something that our ancestors paid for. So I tell people, and most of you here in this room this evening have experienced it to one degree or the other. People get real cute with you out in the world because you're a black man or a black woman. And you tell them, don't get cute with me, because my ancestors were here before you got here.
Come on and tell it. Yes.
And they built this place, and they're continuing to maintain it as quiet as it's kept.
That's right. Well, thanks for joining us today for our annual Kwanzaa celebration in honor of the life and legacy of Baba Melvin Deal. You know, he meant so much to our ward, to our organization, to the district, and to Kwanzaa. He will be deeply missed. You know, I've personally known Baba Deal since I was about 14 years old, when I was a performing artist in the Summer Youth Employment Program all those many years ago. And I've known him from that time through my time at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, all the way up until now. What an incredible legacy he leaves behind. We will never know the full impact of all the lives, the countless lives that he's touched over the years, because he simply was. Well, thank you for joining us today for this special reflection on the life and legacy of Baba Deal. Baba Deal, wherever your spirit is, we speak your name. Until next time, go in peace and happy Kwanzaa.